I am Kushan Mitra, contributing editor at ThePrint, and I'm here in Mumbai with Martin Uhlarik, who's the head of design at Tata Motors, and they have just launched the new Tata Altras. Now, the first question I want to ask Martin is about the hatchback segment. As Tata Motors themselves know very well, we're all moving to SUVs. I mean, your best-selling cars are all SUVs nowadays. How do you make hatchback sexy again?
Yeah, we've seen in the industry, we've seen in our own portfolio, the critical mass, the whole portfolio is basically migrated to SUV typology, whether it's compact to premium, whether it's a mainstream or it's a coupe, it doesn't matter. And yet here we're today launching a hatchback, a traditional type vehicle. But I think actually the hatchback, there is a space and a market and an appetite for this typology. First, we've seen with the Tiago, we did a model year 24, and the sales have improved quite significantly. So there is a market for an affordable hatchback, like the Tiago. And now with the Altras, we're offering a premium hatchback. So I was mentioning this in the presentation. Traditionally, people would buy this type of vehicle because of practicality, functionality, and budget. And now you're adding a different layer to it in the sense you're making something that's high tech, you're making it affluent, aspirational, and quite, it's quite a fashionable vehicle now if you package it in the right way. The feature list and the design, those two things combined with a competitive price. I think there's a lot of people who are in the market for a car of this sort of mainstream offering.
Is the hatchback buyer different from the SUV buyer, in your opinion?
Yes, I think so. I think the hatchback buyer is a little bit traditional, by virtue of it being around for a longer period of time. It's a little bit more urban. SUV, I think, is popular because it gives that perception of freedom, and you can go anywhere, even if you don't go anywhere. Whereas a hatchback, if you package it in, like I said, a premium offering with the right amount of technology, features, design, comfort, and so forth, it can become an avatar for quite a fashionable person.
And what do you feel about this buyer? As you said, he's aspirational but also conservative. So, I mean,
yeah, it's a kind of fine line. You're going to appeal to maybe older customers who are the traditional customers, but again, there's a lot of things in our lives which are, you could say, traditional products, but if they're packaged in the right way and if they're sold in the right way with the right offering, they can become a fashionable, trendy aspect. I always say sneakers is my first go-to. Started out as just for running, for sports. Then it became more of an all-round thing. Then it became an avatar that you are sporty if you're wearing sneakers. Now it's a fashion item. Yes, some of them can be affordable, some of them can be very expensive. It depends on the brand, it depends on the design. But fundamentally, it's still a pretty universal product, but it's just offered in a different way. And the same thing can be happening with the hatchback.
Okay, so running shoes are running, but sneakers, if you're wearing Jordans or you're wearing Air Force One, so yes. That's a different use case altogether.
Exactly. So there's a lot of branding that goes behind that. Altras was the first premium hatch, that we offered, and now we're building on that.
Now I want to get to another aspect of design for the hatchback in India in particular. We have this 4-meter rule. Mm-hmm. You as head of Tata Motors Design should be very... Is it restrictive, or do you find opportunities within the 4-meter rule?
Yeah, it's a challenge. It's no different from a design brief that I give the design team. Whether they have an existing package or they have a fixed budget. I always say the smaller the envelope, the more creative you're going to be. So yes, the 4-meter rule exists. Yes, it gives you some limits in terms of what you can do, but you can become very creative within that 4 meters. You can see, what the products that we're offering, they offer a lot. And the key is actually interior space. That's the biggest challenge area when you have this sort of fixed footprint.
All right. And coming to interiors, one question I remember asking in the past also. You now offer the car with a digital instrument cluster as well as the infotainment screen. I've noticed in cars, all cars nowadays, when I drive them, there is the chance of, say, information overload. Because you have so much information on the infotainment screen, you have so much information on the cluster.
Yes.
Is that a design challenge for you as well? Because the fonts you use, the amount of information you display.
It's a sensory overload, information overload, which can give you more stress potentially, or just fatigue. It's definitely something that we're conscious of. People want the technology, they want the information, but I think the way forward is to have selective information. UX UI is now a department within design, and we're looking at how to collaborate and how to actually configure the menu and the information that you have, say, widgets that you can that appear or disappear depending on what information you need, or you can enlarge them, make them smaller. You don't have to have all the information all the time. I think it has to be more like sequential.
Because driver distraction is a
it's a factor in terms of safety, attention, fatigue, like you said. So this is an area where you really have to think, and then also you see introduction of HUD displays plus the TFTs in front of the driver. So from a driver point of view, what information do they need? What's the minimum amount of information do they need to drive from A to B safely with the right information? Whether it's speed, how much fuel they have, etc., etc. So the infotainment is a separate thing, but for the driver, that's very important, and it's linked with safety.
And talking of safety, of course, we have safety on this car as well, but you haven't launched this with ADAS functionality. You have ADAS obviously on your premium SUVs like
right.
Harrier and Safari. Do you see these safety features also coming into smaller cars going forward?
Eventually, yes. I mean, like all new technology, it's expensive at the beginning. Usually starts at the top of the portfolio, but eventually it trickles down to the rest of the portfolio. It's just a matter of cost, and is the customer willing to pay for it?
And my last question over here is, this car is starting out with 5-star B NCAP rating.
Yes.
The B NCAP had the side pole test as well.
Very impressive video.
Very impressive video indeed. Hopefully our viewers can watch that right now. Do these safety regulations that we have now, are they also restrictive in design in any sense, because you have to put the reinforcement on the side? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, they are. I mean, whether it's side impact, pedestrian impact on the front, has homogenized car design. Lights have to be at a certain height. Bonnet has to have a certain topology. It determines the angles of the nose. It determines the proportion of the nose. Everybody has to follow the same rules.
That's why cars are looking very similar.
That's one of the reasons why you see basically, a lot of consensus, because the amount of fixed points is almost universal. So again, it comes down to the designers being as creative as possible within those hard points. But it's a reality.
So therefore you're saying that if these are the regulations you have to meet, if you are to get a 5-star score, so
you have to achieve those.
You have to have reinforcement in these parts.
Yeah. Bumper beam, side impact, headlamps. The bonnet has to have a certain curvature. You can only have a certain size radius on it. Make less sharp features, etc. The way the lamps are packaged in terms of height, in terms of legislation for road usability, in terms of angle, visibility. Also, can you see it from the far side, etc., etc. There's so many, you can almost draw all the zones that the designer has to work with at the beginning, and then your room for maneuvering is very limited.
It's a bit like Formula One. All the cars look the same.
But that's a perfect analogy. If you look, the rules are very strict, far more stricter than they were back in the 1970s, where there was really a big difference between the grid. Now, if you look, the cars in Formula One are pretty much similar. If you painted them all primer color, you would be hard pressed to tell, one from the other. But at the same time, there's a lot of ingenuity, within that. Even within those parameters, it's far more, finite.
So similar with
with the standard automobile design.
road cars as well. Thank you so much for your time. Looking forward to driving this in the next couple of days.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Always good.